But what you usually do is you boost way too much and then you find the corner frequency that you want to excite and then you back off. And after you back off a little more because it's very, very easy to overdo this. Simple video, my top 10 special processing and saturators for 2-bus that you can use on the entire mix. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, welcome back to MixBus TV. Hope you're having a great day. Before we start, as usual, check the info box down below for my mixing courses on Pro Mix Academy, free plugin special discounts and offers, and of course all the links to the plugins that we are seeing today. And if you want to support the channel, but most important, if you really want to learn how to mix and master professionally, click the join button down here, become a MixBus TV member, access the already big and always growing library of full mixes, start to finish, mastering courses, special videos, and a lot more. You also get mix consultations with me via Skype or email. Let's get to the video. All right, this is going to be a collection of special processing and saturator or color boxes in the box, so only plugins for 2-bus, for the entire mix. Let's jump right into it. The first one is True Iron by Kazrock. Kazrock makes absolutely great plugins. Clip 3 is one of the best clippers out there. True Iron is a very, very versatile saturator and enhancer, so to speak. The different voicings will give you a different collection of harmonics. Some are going to be brighter, some are going to be more rich than others, but overall it's very versatile. It has a very useful function of unity and boost, so you can automatically level match, which is very important when you use something like this. The morph button, it basically adjusts to the material if you have a very dynamic material. And this is well suited for 2-bus and generally speaking for complex material. Let's hear it in action without first.
I'ma beat 'em, fucking kneel 'em down. Make 'em cop a plea for freedom, leave 'em bleeding out. I'm Carlito, mob leader, Don Vito, Nino Brown. And I'm OG like Montana. I don't mean French or henna, more like Tony from Havana. Cause if they try to throw me in the handcuffs, I got my codies with the handguns, the puppet police if they act tough. Cause we got like 4 keys in the back of the OG. We roll deep, man, it go deep in the bang bus. We so street like O'Teef and Bandana, so please, y'all so weak, y'all like both knees on a grandma. And y'all be drip dropping in Gucci tops and Louboutins, new Balenciagas, Louboutins. I'm still rocking FUBU hoodies with some Puma socks like it's 92 and I'm popping.
All right, so you hear is a very natural enrichment of the material. I like the morph function on this. It follows the energy of the song. You might get lost picking the right voicing, but once you start learning them, it's gonna be a lot quicker. It also has a crush function. It's not really suited for 2-bus. It gets too much very quickly. This would be my first enhancer for 2-bus. Let's get to the second. Black Q V2 by Tone Empire. This is an emulation, a very good emulation actually, of a tube equalizer, and it's great for 2-bus both because of the EQ but also because of the drive function here that you can see this red knob. Okay, I like pretty much everything about this EQ, with the low and the air band being my favorite bands. So let's play really quick with this one and then we focus on the drive knob, which is also useful sometimes in mastering.
Them are some big pretenders, so me take when me sell from them. Take when me sell from them. Ulterior agenda, so me take when me sell from them. Take when me sell from them. Bad vibes sender, me take when me sell from them. Take when me sell from them. Man I go like we no member, but them devious ways that me dey condemn. Well, me no care if a friend or so-called brothers, me find out say them know how we climb up the.
All right, let's bypass the EQ altogether now and play with the drive. This is a very subtle kind of saturation, but that's why it's useful on 2-bus.
Them are some big pretenders, so me take when me sell from them. Take when me sell from them. Ulterior agenda, so me take when me sell from them. Take when me sell from them. Bad vibes sender, me take when me sell from them. Take when me sell from them. Man I go like we no member, but them devious ways that me dey condemn. Well, me no care if a friend or so-called brothers, me find out say them know how we climb up the ladder. Flip out with them again, me nah go bother. Link.
Okay, you hear that Type B introduces a lot more distortion, which is not a bad thing, but you might want to back off the drive knob when you use Type B. A is basically a foolproof kind of saturation. It just adds this little soft layer of harmonics that you almost only hear when you take it away more than when you activate it, and that's like the key, especially on tubas. And also the cool thing is that you can place the drive pre on post EQ. This again works well on many different genres, and the EQ part is actually very good. Let's get to the next one. Harmonics by Softube. This is a very elegant kind of saturator for the tubas. 5 different algorithms. You have the drive and the character, which is almost a tilt EQ, which is not really. It's more like, where do you want the more concentration of harmonic? Low mids or high mids, you know, the low range or high range. And then you have this DTC dynamic, increases the perceived transient content, but I'm just gonna focus on the different types of saturation because it really changes how it shaves the transient and how it reacts to the dynamic. So let's try it on this mix. Okay, it's subtle, but you can hear I really like the solid and the modern, especially for rock like this. It adds that grunt in the low mid range that is really nice. The tube is the one that compresses the most out of the 5 different algorithms, and you can, again, with the drive knob decide, but you can see I'm pushing it all the way in the red, and it never has that brush harsh sound that many saturators have. That's why I like to describe this one as very elegant type of saturation and enhancer. This is the SPL2 processor. Of all the saturator and the special processing that I'm showing you in this video, is probably the least appropriate for the tubas because it can get too much very quickly, but sometimes it's nice. It's basically comprised of 2 sections, the harmonics, which is more the high range, and the saturation, which is a more wideband saturation, okay? That one in particular is the one that gets too much very quickly, so let's focus on the harmonics first. That's good for enhancement like the top end and the mid range.
Sick of the way you run with my day. Sick of the way you always count my mistakes. I feel a turn in my stomach. Feel like I should say something.
I like this part because it's different than EQ. It's not an equalizer, so you add brightness using saturation, which is, you know, many times better than plain EQ, more interesting. And you have 4 pre-selected frequencies, 10, 6, 3, and 2, based on these push buttons and the combination of them, okay? Then you have the saturation part. Pay attention though, because on bass heavy material, the saturation can mud the waters a little bit. Let me try here, maybe we can hear it.
Sunshine on this side of town. You could get lost and never be found.
Okay, you hear it, it gets too much very soon, and it can snare the low end of some bass heavy songs. Next one, you see me using this one many times, and I mention it many times just because it's a great plugin. It's the Ozone Exciter. The reason because I like it is because it's very versatile. It's multi-band, which for a saturator is something that I like, especially if you have to tailor it to an entire song. And the thing that I like is that it has several different algorithms, and you can change the algorithms for each band. That's key for me for this one.
She be screaming, "Daddy, put me back in." I
I ain't got no time, this is mackin'. Photo, chop out a bit of money on the back end. She be screaming, daddy, put me back in. I ain't got no time, this is mackin'. Girl, player, acting. Now you wanna see about the bird flow? You don't really know that I know. I ain't got no time for the game or the lame. I'ma get it one down, photo. Click. Pause, what you really wanna talk about? Pause, how you wanna go and run my life? Pause, if you got the dollar to go and get. If you really wanna see me, you know that they're gon' hit. If you really got it, pop it, to go.
Okay, you see here really quick, I tend to be very conservative now. I exaggerated the settings for the sake of the video, but especially for the really low end, so let's say 120 and below or 90 and below, depending on the song, I like to either leave it alone, or sometimes if I run some saturation there, I prefer the very subtle algorithms for this. Let's get to the next one. Very similar, but with a different approach. This is Harmonic Maximizer by Odd-Rey. Now, this is more like an EQ/saturator, okay? It's very powerful, so it can be very easy to overdo, and it's kind of exciting when you first start moving the gain knobs. There's also a level increase that fools you, okay? You have a general drive knob, and also a push, which is some sort of a pre-made compression.
Photo, chop out a bit of money on the back end. She be screaming, daddy, put me back in. I ain't got no time, this is mackin'. Girl, player, acting. Now you wanna see about the bird flow? You don't really know that I know. I ain't got no time for the game or the lame. I'ma get it one down, photo. Click. Pause, what you really wanna talk about? Pause, how you wanna go and run my life?
Okay, you hear the push is kind of clean. There's no really added distortion to it, but it makes stuff jump. And then you have this basically parametric EQ, which adds saturation per band.
Photo, chop out a bit of money on the back end. She be screaming, daddy, put me back in. I ain't got no time, this is mackin'. Girl, player, acting. Now you wanna see about the bird flow? You don't really know that I know. I ain't got no time for the game or the lame. I'ma get it one down, photo. Click. Pause, what you really wanna talk about? Pause, how you wanna go and run my life? Pause, if you got the dollar to go and get. If you really wanna see me, you know that they're gon' hit. If you really got it, pop it, to go and get. I ain't wanna talk.
Different from all the other saturators, especially the top end. It kind of works like an air band, and always pay attention when you saturate the low range. Low, mids, low, and sub, okay? Because that kind of distortion can get nasty, and it's easy to mask if you don't have a good monitoring system. Odd-Rey Harmonic Maximizer. Let's get to the next one, Contortion 24. It's kind of a secret weapon. I had it for a while, and I used it actually in many mixes. Never on the 2-bus, but also I have hardware for saturation, so that's different. It is a really good sounding plugin. It has a ton of algorithms, from the distortion, you can see here the red flame, to saturation, to wave shaper. Now for mix and 2-bus, you want to stay here in the saturation range, while the distortion, crunch, overdrive are more obvious distortion. You have filters, you can work in mid-side, stereo, or mono, and you have an automatic makeup gain, which is always good when working with this kind of processors.
Photo, chop out a bit of money on the back end. She be screaming, daddy, put me back in. I ain't got no time, this is mackin'. Girl, player, acting. Now you wanna see about the bird flow? You don't really know that I know. I ain't got no time for the game or the lame. I'ma get it one down, photo. Click. Pause, what you really wanna talk about? Pause, how you wanna go and run my life? Pause, if you got the dollar to go and get. If you really wanna see me, you know that they're gon' hit. If you really got it, pop it, to go and get. I ain't wanna talk, I don't never walk. I just wanna try, I did 5,000. She just wanna talk about the dick, I'm wildin'. I don't wanna fuck about the bitch, I'm gone. No, better yet, get a little bit of this to get the check. Gotta have that when the nigga just break a neck. If you really know, then you better just write the check.
Okay, you hear the bright can get very bright. The warm is really good, even if you don't want to use it on a full mix. To few elements that are overly bright, this one has a nice smoothing effect on the top end you hear on this mix. And if you want to try, you can try the overdrive, even though on the 2-bus on an entire mix is too much.
Photo, chop out a bit of money on the back end. She be screaming, daddy, put me back in. I ain't got no time, this is mackin'. Girl, player, acting. Now you wanna see about the bird flow? You don't really know that I know. I ain't got no time for the game or the lame. I'ma get it one down, photo. Click.
Okay, in overdrive mode, you can actually use it as a clipper. This is a good plugin. Like I said, I don't think I've ever mentioned it. Next one, many of you will already know, is Abbey Road Vinyl from Waves. This is for a more obvious vintage kind of effect on a full mix. When you use it on a mix, you want to make sure you check a couple of things like the noise. I usually keep it off, so the crackles, density, and clicks, because those are more special effects that you want to add to specific single tracks as opposed to an entire mix.
I'm just trying to sound like what real sound like. I'm still the same down guy, same down vibes. I know that you heard this, I deserve this. After what the hurt did, it done turned out perfect. I'm just trying to sound like what real sound like. I'm still the same down guy, same down vibes. I know that you heard this, I deserve this. After what the
Okay, if you're not familiar, the Lacquer would be a little more high-end than the Print, and same for the turntable, the AR, and the DJ. That the DJ would be a little more lo-fi, and so on with the cartridge. Okay, so if you want to run it on the transparent side, you want to keep these settings here and then try to change one or the other to see what vibes feels the better for the track. You can also turn the TG desk. This was modeled after the Abbey Road TG desk as well. That's a color, an imprint that it gives. So if you want even more transparent, you can take that out.
I'm just trying to sound like what real sound like. I'm still the same down guy, same down vibes. I know that you heard this, I deserve this. After what the hurt did, it done turned out perfect. I'm just trying to sound like what real sound like. I'm still the same down guy, same down vibes. I know that you heard this, I deserve it.
Okay, you hear this is an obvious effect, and the tone arm, I moved this one so you could hear that the closer you get to the center, the darker everything is. Let's go to the last two. This for most people will be super basic, like, David, this is max bass. Yeah, it's max bass, and believe it or not, it's still one of the best of what it does. And sometimes you have a weak low end or you want to add a little bit more oomph. This is still a good ticket, and yes, it can be used on a full mix. Conservatively, but it can be used in a full mix. 80 is a good starting point, and what I make sure usually is that I have the octave at 24 because I don't want to excite too much the sub energy. Okay, really quick, you can hear, you can go from the just weight around 40 and 50 to a more tonal kind of low end in the low mid range, depending what you want to get out of it. I usually don't mess with the ratio and response because that changes the dynamic, changes how much processing based on the dynamic, and if you're mixing into it or if you're adding it to an almost finished mix, you don't want to change that ratio, at least I don't. But what you usually do is you boost way too much and then you find the corner frequency that you want to excite and then you back off, and after you back off a little more because it's very, very easy to overdo this. Last one in this list is Soundtoys Radiator. I really like this one. It's very, very subtle and it can actually used on multiple tracks, but I find it very useful for a full mix. Like I said, I just wanted to give you a bunch of options to try on the 2-bus, and this is basically the emulation of a 2 preamp. For the 2-bus, you want to run it clean, not noisy, and you basically set the amount of saturation, moving the input and output. Again, it's very subtle, and you can hear even driven really hard, it still stays subtle and still stays smooth, and it adds this kind of veil of warmth around it. You have a really basic bass and treble EQ, which is very useful, actually very shallow and broad curves. You can hear that is the maximum amount of distortion, is barely breaking. So you have a wide range of very, very subtle saturation with this one. Sound toys make really good saturators, and this is definitely one of my favorites. And this is it for this video. These were my top special processing, for the most part, saturators for tuba that you can use on an entire mix. I hope the video was useful. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please don't forget to leave a like. Click the join button to access the exclusive members only material. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up, man, take control. Heart is so